We'll skip the meeting. You're okay? Yep. Okay. At 10 a.m. The town of Smoky Lake respectfully acknowledges that we are situated on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional lands of First Nations and Métis. And I'll start with there are none, so I guess we'll proceed. It's okay to proceed straight to delegations. Well, we should adopt the agenda, I guess.
Oh, yes, adopt the agenda first.
Okay. Or, yeah, it's right there. Can we add to this agenda? Like, or?
Yeah, it's technically.
So
a
it's still
council
open,
meeting.
okay, so adopting
For
the budget, any additions or deletions? No,
Make a motion to accept the agenda as presented.
all in favor? None opposed, so carried. And then we will move to delegation, all right, welcome Harvey. Do you want us to do a small round table or did you?
No, that's fine. I think I know everybody here. Yeah, I think I know everybody here. Related to some, so. Okay, thank you for having me, your worship. So the question is, why am I here? What's my concern? What's my issue? I've printed a handout and it's kind of a culmination of why I'm here. So. As everyone probably knows or should know, I was the town manager twice. And I managed different municipalities. I was a CAO for over 25 years. And before coming to the town the last time, we had 200 staff in 7 municipalities, 7 districts, like Wabaska had 2,000 people, Red Earth Creek had 800. There were 7 communities, 200 staff. So this was quite a downsize coming back. So I had lots of budgets, lots of managers, lots of departments. I was always a CAO. So believe me, I know this business inside and out. And so my heart is here. I moved back home and I do not want to see this town fail. So why am I here? Number one issue, the number one issue is financial viability. Okay, what does that mean? When I was here the last time, I went to do a budget, operating budget. And the pure operating, no capital. We're not taking money out of reserves, we're not borrowing, no grants, pure operating, right? Everybody knows that. You've seen that. The operating budget, I couldn't balance, couldn't get to zero. We have to go with 3 rounds of cuts. I sat down, Marianne was an FCSS. Hank was the foreman, we went through all the departments. Crystal, you were probably here. You were here at the time. So I balanced it. So what did that mean? $0. Operating budget did not have 1 nickel for capital. Not 1 penny, unless we borrowed it, used our reserves or grants. That was a big red flag for me at that time, 2015 when I retired. Big red flag, $0. What's happened since then? You've had how many buildings burned down? Not a lot of growth, not a lot of new town, stuff happening other than a few government buildings. So the town's going in the wrong direction. Carbon tax, your costs are doing this. Your revenues are, if they're going up, you're increasing all of the utility rates and the taxes. So that's a big red flag. So my issue is the town financially viable. Because at that point I said, we can't go and continue in this direction. There's no way, the money is not there. How high can we keep on cranking the mill rate? You want to attract businesses? What are the people gonna look at? My water bill. I've seen a little handout there with 4 different municipalities. We had the highest water bills. So are we comparing ourselves to other municipalities? I don't know. What's our tax rate compared to other places? I didn't see that in there. But that's the only thing you can do. You go to Andrew or what have you. Their mill rate is twice of what yours is. So is that gonna attract people? No. You're gonna chase people away. We can't afford to live there. So that's my issue. So I asked for a line by line budget. As Crystal knows, when we were here, what did council get? Line by line, and each line item had a page in a binder. You all each got a binder this big, and then there was an explanation of how we got that number. Taxes, where did we come up with? Every line by line item, the binder was that thick. So Marianne had to complete for the FCSS, where their revenues all came from, Where are the expenses? How many conferences you go to? Where do we, repair and maintenance, the foreman had to put on that page. What are we fixing this year? How we're putting the transmission in this, we're new tires for the grader, line by line budget, and we went through it. Took a whole day, you knew every operating dollar, where it was coming from. You can, if we couldn't answer the question, I had the manager there for the department. If I couldn't answer it, I'd get back to you. Maybe we go to a second meeting where you get 10 questions I can't answer. Or you said, that's high, that's low. You had control of the budget. Right now, you don't. On a one-page summary, I'm sorry, but you don't, council is not in control of the budget. Because you're not seeing all of the information. You're not getting it. You can't make any cuts. County is doing the same thing, and I'll be going to their meeting. They gave a little bit more detail, but there's no line by line. Administration comes to them saying, here's the only thing we can do. 0 cuts. And they got way bigger budget. 0 cuts. We just have it. We need extra money for this. And increase the rates here. That's all administration is recommending. I was always hard asked, sorry, my budget. I would tell my managers, I took my ugly pill because it's going to be ugly. I'm gonna ask the difficult questions. And given the information that you have, you can't. With your one-page summary, the financial statements, if we could call them up. When I asked Dawn for what's the surplus, remember I said 0, this deficit or surplus, right? You said, Dawn, it's in the financial statements. Could you show me where it is? Crystal? What was the surplus last year?
Yeah, we don't normally interact during delegations. It's up to council. We normally just listen during delegations and discuss afterwards. But
Come on.
are you okay with it more? Circling that information?
That's bad. You guys, that's bad. They don't know.
We have it in here, right?
Yeah, you have it in your.
Put it up on here. No, and I'll tell you why. I'm a CPA. And those audited financial statements,
It's in there.
you can't make heads or tails. They're not, that's a one, yeah, it shows a huge deficit there in your package. In your package, deficit from operations, 400,000,
Excuse me,
300.
excuse me. So is this what you're asking that I didn't put up but we already have it in the package?
Well, there's one page. So do I look at that and say you got a deficit from operations of 300,000 or 400,000? As a counselor, I'd be jumping this high. Saying we're in a sinking ship. We better start plugging holes. So here's the difficulty with these financial statements. I'm a CPA. I never ever used them. Why? Because they're so complex. They add funding to, has anybody ever gone through them? You can't make heads or tails of them. There's a little bit of information, funding from this, from that, and why? Because they're not giving you a true picture. The operations, if it's true operating, right, they're not separating the capital items. Right? So they're putting capital items in that. Well, if you get a huge grant, some of those questions that I've underlined, there's $3 million in and 100,000 here and money from government. So they're putting capital in here. The debentures are in here. If you're borrowing money, right? So your debt is going in and out of here. The grants are going in and out of here. You don't know what the surplus or deficit is from those things. You can't make head or tail. I never ever use that. But a true operating with a line by line, once you have a line by line, then you can go to a summary. Once you've seen that and you've approved that, you know we can't cut anywhere. Here's the things we can control. But you know what your surplus or your deficit is here. Yes, you should be getting proper reports on capital, on your debt, on your grants. All of these reports should be nice detailed grants, detailed reports on them. Opening balance, what you added in, like your reserves, in and out of reserves. Right? Reserves report, the county's got a good one. They put opening balance, what went into reserve, what went out of reserve, closing balance, and you approve that. I couldn't find that. There's some information, but it's not clear. Same with your grants. You should know each grant. I can get a report, here's the grant, here's what we used in it, here's what's available, we can use it for roads, we can use it for building, we can use it for tires, what can we use it for? So you have to become educated, if you're spending those dollars, you should know that grant, what you can use it for, how much is left, what's our closing balance, what do we have for next year? The capital plan, the government says you have to approve how many year capital plan? Right, 5. So that's what you've been brought. I had, I think, a 20-year plan. Now, what do you base that on? When I was here was 20, at least 20 year. But what was it based on? I'm not an expert on how long that road lasts. So you have to get the engineers here, and I think you did a study on all the infrastructure. You take that report, fresh in your mind with the engineers here, and get him to help you build that 20-year capital plan. Okay, now we know every water line, every sewer line, it's in that 20-year plan. I found a couple of numbers that administration had pulled in your budget report. Have you guys seen those numbers? The millions it's gonna require for infrastructure? Has anybody seen that? Where's it gonna come from? Don't have them. We never did then, and the streets are crumbling. I hate to say this, the streets are crumbling. We're gonna be Andrew, pavement to gravel. Because we don't have the money, at least the route, at least the direction that you're going now, that's gotta be high priority. When I was here, I had an 8-year plan to repave the entire streets. I don't believe in taking debt on unless somebody else is making the payment. So the formula, and council adopted a policy at that time, that on the paving of the roads, we use 50% grant, 50% we borrow with local improvement. So the taxpayer, that property tax owner, is paying it. Doesn't affect the budget. So you're getting capital done using grants wisely and debt wisely, because you're not making the payment. Fire hall, right? Grant and borrowing, right? It's gotta come out of the operating. Solar project, you got deficits, right? You borrowed some money for the solar project. I couldn't make heads or tail of the reports, a true picture of your solar project. How much is it affecting the operating? If it's got a deficit, it's coming out of the operating. All of those things are drilling another hole in the sinking ship. That's why I'm here today. That's why I want a line by line. With the line by line, I will go through it for you. So I'll have the information and I'll come back as a delegation and I'll show you what this number is. If there's a nice healthy surplus, great. Okay, then where are you guys spending that? Where on the capital? Right, I'll wanna see what you're approving. If there's a deficit here, sinking ship. I wanna see the town survive. And in order to do that financially, I need to see those numbers. So I can, in my whole letter here, I can say openness and accountable, right? I quoted your policy and your mission statement. What's that all based on? And that's the other thing. As a CAO, that line by line budget there was a stack of them. Whoever came to a meeting, it was handed out. Crystal will know, it sat on the counter. Anybody walked in and wanted to see it, it's here. I did have people take it, come back a week later and say, these 15 items, I want to see the invoices. I said, that's your money. I'm spending your money. I ought to be accountable for every nickel of it. Here's the invoices for equipment repair and maintenance in the gas system. All copies of all the invoices. Were they charged and sent to FOIP? No, never. Never. That's my job, is to remember who's in charge, and it's the taxpayers.
Are you talking about an approved budget, though?
What's that?
The line by line out there that was that they could come and see the invoices, that's an approved budget.
Well, you have one.
I just want to be
No, you
open
have-
and transparent. It's a.
Yeah, you
an
have a
approved-
draft. I gave out a draft. Why not? I
But-
never went in camera to kick
But if
anybody out.
somebody's asking you for an invoice, it's already been approved and purchased.
Well, through the course of the year, not
Yeah.
necessarily.
Well, I
At
just
a
wanna-
budget meeting, we never went in camera. What's there that's employees' wages and that, things like that, okay, where it's true FOIPable that you don't want anybody to know, but other than that, I never kicked anybody out of a budget meeting. Ever, it's open, and the draft was a bit, so you're saying, can we give approved things? Yes, but the draft was there for them to take a copy. On the counter was the approved one, because you're working on it. We might have 2-3 budget meetings. Council may come back and say, I want information on this. So, but the drafts were available to everybody who came to the meeting. I didn't say FOIP it, or I'm not giving it. Never. I gave out information. I said, and if we made mistakes, I fess up. Sorry, you're right. We shouldn't have spent money on this and this. Sorry. Change it, fix that. That's your money. That's your money. I ought to be accountable, because why, and here's the downside. You may think you're not accountable. This is administration, I'll stay out of administration. No, in the end, if there's a corporate review, George Cuff, which I followed 2 or 3 of his, I followed 5 corporate reviews as a cleanup man. I've been to municipalities where they fired, Iris Evans fired all 11 councillors. You will all be held accountable financially. So yeah, it can't be, I don't know where that's administration. That don't fly. They will hold you guys accountable. Worse yet, if there's things that are happening that shouldn't be, and personal liability, you don't want that hanging around your neck. So you have to know that information. There it is. That's why I want to line my line. Thank you. Any questions of me?
I have one.
Okay, yes, yes, yes. I'm a resource. Believe me, we're on the same side. We both want,
What
we
kind
both
of-
want, we're on the same side. So you can ask me anytime. You can call me to a meeting. You can phone me anytime. Believe me. So
No,
yes.
and I
Yes.
I appreciate that,
Yes.
Harvey.
Yes.
It did feel a little bit like you wanna be the financial contractor for the budget, like that felt like a little bit of an interview, like to give you the numbers and you'll go through them and bring them back, like we have a paid employee for that, so I was just wondering, like, if you as a resident or a taxpayer are wanting to go through, that is awesome, and I appreciate that, but we do have administration, right, to review the budget.
Is administration giving you the true picture? If they don't know what the surplus or deficit is, we'll find out.
Yeah.
Now, for the county, I drafted them a letter through their budget and I've offered, I said, there's way more detail and they got big issues, they got big financial issues. I've offered to be a financial consultant for them at no cost. I will sit on their budget committee, that's what I'm recommending to them because they have a lot more detail. I would like to sit in them at no charge to them. Same purpose as you have, but just they got a whole way more dollars to spend and waste if they want to waste them. So.
Evelyn, did you still have? a
Yeah, I
question?
do, yeah. First of all, I want to say thank you for your presentation. You're preaching to the converted. I took a municipal, an EOEP course in municipal finance, and it was mind-blowing. It was absolutely amazing. It was taught by the chartered accountant who works for Lamont County, Rodney, and I have a crush on him because he was so great about teaching this and made me very much aware of how much I don't know. And that's what I appreciate about those courses is because a little bit of knowledge makes you,
Sure.
the more you learn, the more you realize
Sure.
that you don't know. And I absolutely agree with you. I also want to say that I, as a new counselor, I sat in on the county when the previous CAO did exactly what you're talking about. They came up with I think it's called like a zero budget where months in advance already before the new council came on, he had all of his directors and all of his departments go through their budget line by line, and it was an amazing presentation.
Yes.
And I remember sitting in on it and going, well, I'm jealous of the county because the way that this money and the financials were
Yes.
presented and what the staff did.
Yes.
And again, everybody had, and every single staff member came forward and said, this is where we can make cuts, this is
Yes.
where we can do it and so on. So I do remember already in those first few months coming back to council and even writing in my report going, this is amazing, this is something
Sure.
that we should do.
Yes.
I also remember sitting in a meeting where I was told by previous administration, I think it was literally, I went back to my notes 9 times during the meeting that I just had to wait for the audited financial statement because that would prove that how good a financial shape we are. So then I noticed that everybody was repeating, oh, we are in good shape because we have a clean audit. And of course, that's, and as you, and I know that too, because I brought that up in my municipal finance course, which by the way, I took a second time, I paid for it out of my own money. Because I enjoyed it so much the first time, I decided, now that I know so much more as a counselor, I'm gonna do this again. And they laughed and laughed when they heard that people were saying, oh, as long as we have a clean audit, then our financials are.
What's a
in
clean
good
audit?
shape."
What is the audit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure
So
the
like-
statements are accurate.
Well, so this is why I also will want to say that also something that I've looked at, which is what I think you're going for, is, or potentially is that a lot of communities form what's called committees, like advisory committees, so that they do advise on the budget. So you do have knowledgeable people on that committee. So it is too much to ask for a council to come in, many of whom don't even have their own budget, so that they run. And then we are expected to understand the budget. So I understand everyone sitting at this table feeling really overwhelmed because we learned, again, this is why I'm going back to it, is because I'm 3 years in, and the more I learn, the more I realize that I don't know and that I need to learn. So that's why I do appreciate what you're saying, and I do think that that is something that we should discuss, because if you are seeing something like this, then perhaps an audit, like a financial committee or a budget committee that, again, takes the pressure
Oh, I
off
could
our
do this with the
council,
committee,
takes the
sure.
pressure off the council.
Sure.
Okay, can we have another
But doing
comment from
that.
Mary Ann?
So, I just according to the agenda, so we do bring it back, but thank you, Harvey. I heard something different. I heard, I don't think he wants to come and have a job here or review it, but I heard that you were expressing your interest in having the line by line budget. So in my
That's what's in my letter,
understanding,
yes,
okay, so in my understanding,
yes,
we had a preliminary budget meeting prior to this.
yes.
Today we have a budget meeting. We're just beginning the process, so I think at some point in the near future, we are having a line by line budget, or we're reviewing it for approval. So unless I'm not understanding clearly, but if you're asking for something and you're asking for a line by line budget,
Yes.
is it public information
Yes,
or? is it-
municipal affairs, I called them, yeah, they said an open municipality would give it to you, and I did it for 25 years. If you're being expected to approve the capital grant without knowing what this number is, the
So
cart's before
Can
the
I
horse.
refer this to, okay, so what I'm hearing, to recap, you're requesting a line by line.
Yes, yeah, it's in my letter.
And so to our admin, is that something that, could that request be facilitated?
Harvey requested several items, which was a FOIA request. This year's operating line, we don't provide, so what we provide is by GL, is what we've done previously.
It's hard because you're not on the camera, Dawn, sorry.
You can't hear, sorry.
What's
The
hard?
people online can't
Well,
see me, is
yeah,
that what you're saying? I don't wanna make anyone sick. So what we provided historically is more of a summary, and then what we talk about is the additions and the deletions from the budget. That's how this council's done it previously. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way. A line by line budget is not public until it's approved by council, unless it's in the council's agenda. So it's FOIA protected. So if we don't have one completed yet, you're right, because there's 3 pages or 2 pages or 4 pages or whatever of notes today that we need answers from council on the direction you want us to take. So once we have that, we'll update the budget. Once it's approved, that is a document that we can release. Last year's we can release, this year's unless it's in the agenda, and that'll be up, I mean, if council wants to change how we do our budgets, that's up to the whole of council to make that decision, and then we would make those changes, we would pivot. Right now, we just break down the highlight the changes, and then we answer those questions. So right now, that is a FOIA protected document, and yes, we did double check that. And so, but if it was in the agenda, now it's public. So that'll be, so as you know, following the delegation, council can discuss and if.
In closing to my comment,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you
Yes.
for outlining just to recap. So if at the end of the day, Mr. Krotsky wants a line by line, once it's approved by this council, he can get that and it's not.
I'm asking for last year's, so I don't need this year's. You should be open, it should be open. You can hold it back and again withhold information, that's all that is. Give me last year's, which you approved. Last year's budget you approved. Give me line by line for last year.
Okay, so is
And 2000, I've asked for 22, 23, and 24. I don't need a line by line for 25. If you were open, you would give that too, because I want to see what you're budgeting.
Okay, I think we're closing.
You did approve it, so you did approve it. That's what I'm
And we
asking
will
for.
further discuss at the, yeah. Right, thank you, Harvey.
Okay, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Harvey. And your voice made it the whole time.
Yeah.
All right. So. I guess we'll move into the first one.
So, Before I put the motion on the table, I do agree with what Barbara said, and maybe we need to look at, changing our process. And we are, like Evelyn said, we are all learning and previous council even. There might be an appetite to do the budget process differently and how, some things covered differently. Might not be a bad idea. So for today, I move that the town of Smoky Lake accept for information the presentation by Harvey Protsky, public citizen, regarding the budget process. Any discussion?
Evelyn?
So, just what I heard there, the 20, not the current one, but the last year's can be provided with a line by line, like a full
Yes.
line by line, okay.
There was just, the information request that was submitted was extensive, it would take a lot of time to compile, so I requested a FOIA request. Because it was more than just a line, if it was just a line by line for 24, crystal printed, that's fine, but there was a lot of other items in there and breakdowns and whatnot, so. So it was, we're following administrative processes, and it's a $25 fee, not a $50 fee, and, but if it was just for 2024, if we're going several years in and several other pieces of information requested, it's a FOIA request.
Okay. I'd also like to request that all members of council get a copy of that as well.
Of which, the 24 line by line?
Yeah.
That would be a motion.
I haven't approved it.
2024, the previous one that we did approve.
Oh, okay, sorry, my mistake.
Do you want to do a motion?
So I would like to make the motion that the town of Smoky Lake admin provide council with a full line by line. It's for 2024 budget.
2024, okay. Including year-to-dates, current year-to-dates,
Thank you, that, I would like
that
that.
would be more
Okay.
valuable then, right?
Yeah, we did have a motion on the Mary Ann's motion, so
All right.
is there anything, Terry, was yours? So I'll call the question on Mary Ann's, all in favor? And then opposed, and then I'll call the question on Evelyn's motion regarding the line by line 2024 budget. All in favor. So, sorry, do you want to discuss? Okay. Okay, that.
No, I'm actually gonna get Carly to repeat it back.
Admin to provide council line by line for 2024 budget. Including year to dates.
And that was a line to line budget, right?
Yeah, line
Last
by.
year.
Is that good? Administration too.
Is everyone okay with that? Did
Yeah.
anyone see where it needs to be added? And then, no,
No,
okay.
sounds good.
Any other?
Sorry, can I just clarify, so do we want that in the next budget meeting or also sometime maybe and in the next budget or
I'm
Agenda?
interested,
send it?
I'm
Okay.
interested, well, I would love to have it printed,
Okay.
because you usually have it in the. So this is why when it comes to this, I always prefer to have it printed, so,
Thank you for the clarity.
thanks.
Any other discussion about the motion? Not all in favor? None opposed. Okay, 4.2, capital budget 2025.
So as you'll recall in the last meeting, we did go into close based on advice from municipal affairs regarding capital budgets. This is something that came up previously as a resolution at Alberta municipalities. That concern that the municipalities had is if we put say $75,000 in for a replacement of this piece of equipment, and then we do an RFP, what happens is the quotes come in at $75,000. So, or it's worse when you have million, water reservoir at this amount, right? So the recommendation was to summarize at a higher end rather than breaking down by each piece of equipment like we normally do. So the only changes I made in here, so what I'm going to recommend is if we want to discuss more line by line or specifics, we could just go into close to go into those details. Unless you're comfortable having it public and just not in print, so that's up to council. But a couple of the changes that I made from the last one, I had West Railway Drive water main replacement and road construction. I had the wrong dollar amount in that one. I had the Iron Horse water loop one. That was the dollar amount for, I had it in the wrong one. So that one's a $2 million project. And as was pointed out, looking forward at our 5-year capital plan, the numbers are really high. And that's based on that review from the engineer, that 10-year capital plan of replacing water lines, sewer lines and roads. I know that's not reasonable, but it was just to get them in our radar for future years.
What page are you referencing to right now?
So I'm kind of just going, right now I'm on page 6, but if you go to page,
6 is Harvey.
6 is the yard.
Oh, yeah, right.
yeah,
When you said the 2 million.
Oh, I see
yeah,
the
so if you go
top.
to roads and sidewalks on
Really?
page 10,
The top, yeah.
yeah, on page 10, if you go to roads and sidewalks,
Yeah.
the numbers are very high, because there's a lot of big projects that, again, maintaining infrastructure. There are some new grants and whatnot available, so that, I mean, that's the hope, it's just to get them in our radar, because that was the 10-year capital plan. It was intended to start in 2021, and we hadn't really started it until, last year and into this year. I didn't want to put more in this year, and we can, but I didn't want to put more in this year because of the, water reservoir project. So I pulled the Railway Drive water main replacement and road construction because it's a $2 million project. It would be funded, sorry, I don't know if you want to go to Mary Ann first.
Sorry, just because we're talking about the roads and sidewalks. So during our term in the last 3 years, have we exceeded our, so whatever was allotted for paving? I don't think we've done any paving projects, so I'm concerned that, yeah, I'm concerned with that. And then my second question is, are we referencing, and maybe I should wait till you explain it, but with the skid steer, that could be for sale at the lodge, is there any opportunity to talk about that here?
And that, I believe, yeah, and that is in our capital replacement project, so, and I know that, I believe, Terry, was it you that reached out to them? I can't remember now.
No, John.
Somebody connected us with so John was talking to them about it.
We had it at our, if I may, so we had it at our last foundation meeting, and if there's no opportunity that the town would look at it, I think John and Ashley went to look at it, I'm not sure. They are going to put it on.
Okay, I'll get them
consignment.
to.
So I think we should talk about that here, or
Well, we can't buy anything until you approve the budget, right? So if you said, if today we walked out of here, or you could approve that one item for us to proceed with that purchase. Sorry, John, are you listening?
if I may, Amy, sorry, I didn't explain it. So they can roll it over to 2025. It's not a today purchase,
No.
it's a future budget.
That doesn't need to be done.
Right, it doesn't need to be done today.
John's at a conference, so I don't know how closely he's listening, so
I just didn't see it on here, Dawn. That's why I'm just asking.
it's,
No, it's on page 9,
yeah,
the third item down,
it's just,
to replace.
so instead of having a dollar amount beside each one, I now have a summary at the top. Because we broke down those costs individually, that way again, people don't
Didn't know what
quote based on our
budget was.
specific budget. So yes, it's there.
Okay.
And I know we did reach out to the lodge, but I will follow up with John on that.
And I was looking at it as a Bobcat, not skid steer.
Okay, no worries. You know, one other thing that they talk about with regards to, like, as we get into these larger projects is, when you talk about long-range financial planning, is that what generation is going to use that piece, that building or those roads? So that there's value in financing some of these over a long period of time, saying, what is the life cycle on this? Because why should we pay for this project? So say redoing water lines and roads in certain areas, right? Why should we, this generation, pay for that? Shouldn't it be spread out over those that are using it? So if it's a 25-year life of a project, by financing that over a long period of time, there is some value in that, you know, you build a new rec center, yeah, but it's 25, shouldn't in 25 years, our kids be paying for that as well? So that's one of the long-range financial planning concepts that they identified. The kind of bad part about financing is costs us money, right? We do have a very low debt ratio, we haven't financed a lot.
Just have a comment on doing that, future generations paying for what they're using. So are we paying for what they provided us with when we started? You know what I mean?
Yes,
If that's the way it's been done, fine, but if we received everything on a plate and we weren't paying for anything, you know where I'm going with that?
it's just one of the concepts within long-range financial planning that they recommend.
Because we can't afford to pay for it.
Well, partly that, I mean, if you look at the next 5 years, and that's in a 10-year plan, that's only the first 5 years of the 10-year plan that I provided at the last meeting.
Well, we are though, we're paying for water,
Why?
right? Like that was a law.
Yeah.
Something that's that expensive that obviously municipalities can't just jump in and pay for, right? It's for the future. You know, so if it's a way of looking at it, yes.
So I did pull that one out, but I did include the Iron Horse Trail water main loop, I think is what it's identified as. And that's over by Maria Close, where we did have issues with that before, and it was identified as one that should have been done in, well, with the plan at that time was 21, and we were just pushing everything out a few years. There was a comment about the washrooms at the Agriplex. They had asked about making them 4 seasons. John estimated this at about $20,000 to get the water lines.
That's a cap.
At the campground, sorry. For the water lines, we would need to double check if the washroom needed to be insulated, so I didn't include that. It was just a comment from them, so. Well,
But the comment was not that. The comment was that they put the meter in a shack out by the road where it was never intended to be. It was supposed to be temporary. So the ask was to move that to where it should be, like in the building.
because it froze, though, I think was the issue, is we had to, that's what I understood is
No,
that.
it's just because it looks like crap.
Oh, okay, but they wanted to enter as well, didn't they?
Well, they would like it for winter, but I don't think the ask was for the town to pay for anything. The ask was,
Okay.
can you move that shack that was out by the road, that was supposed to be a temporary meter
Okay.
to the water, where the
Okay.
water is. That I
I
think,
did ask, yeah.
I don't remember them asking for, they would like to keep the bathrooms open, but I don't think it was an ask of the town. It was, they knew that that meter would have to be moved
As part of that.
as part of
Okay.
that, because
We
it's in
just
a
misunderstood
shack
the
that's not,
actual-
has no heat,
Right.
whereas that building could have heat, right?
Right.
So then that would be one thing that wouldn't have to be shut off for the winter. So I think that was the
Is
intention
that
of
a
that.
big thing to move it, like cost wise?
I don't know, that would have to be on the,
Oh, okay.
it should have never been put there.
Yeah.
It looks
Marianne?
terrible.
So to speak to, on behalf of that, have we received anything in writing that that's the request or?
Nope, we have a delegation that.
I did ask her to send me something, but I hadn't received it. I just don't want to miss it. Yeah. So, yeah, if that's not the formal ask right now, then I think we just get more information.
I can think of it.
And then.
I just have a suggestion that
Yeah.
when we're talking about things like this, it's so nice to have pictures.
You're right.
You're absolutely correct about that. No.
And I think we did have a picture of the shack come, but it wasn't at the budget meeting. Cause they painted it, cause they did it, cause it looked rough, they moved a used shack in there, so it came, like it's been here before, but I understand what you're saying for budget purposes. The shack by
It's not the town.
So where the
no,
washrooms
the town
are,
put it there.
The town did?
The town put it there.
so the washrooms are by the campsite,
The
The
shack
shack-
is in the parking lot of the Agriplex, the complex,
the, at the backside or the?
to the
By
north,
the Barge Ferry side, right?
in front of the ferry, not in the campground, not in the campground
It's
at all.
way down there now.
Yes.
Yes,
By the
now
roadway
I
there,
couldn't
yeah.
figure what you were talking about, and then now.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's a lot of trench.
Okay, but the fact that there's so much confusion where, and then like this, so. I guess I'm saying, bringing this back and saying that needs to be presented, that there needs to be a formal request, we need to see that
Yeah.
in writing.
Oh, yeah.
There's also the agreement with the,
And we're still waiting on that.
so actually, I'm not comfortable doing anything else until we get an agreement in place, so I'm sorry, that's. Yeah,
Well, that's what I was saying, was that this budget isn't, like, that we don't need that in here
Okay.
because that wasn't from when I understand the request, so I'm saying not to have it in here. I think we're saying the same thing, just,
Okay.
yeah.
I just don't want to lose sight of it,
Definitely.
because I wasn't 100% clear on the ask. The other one we moved from operating, we had the ATCO lighting downtown. Council made the motion at committee of the whole to go ahead with retrofit rather than new for a cost of just under 11,000 rather than 120,000, I believe. But Crystal did double check and we can fund this through our LGFF or MSI funding or CCBF. Write that down, CCBF. I always get that acronym wrong for some reason. So we did put that added that to the capital. So now I want to break this down a little bit. So the draft capital budget for 2025 is currently at 900,500, which is a little higher than what was there last time because of the change of the projects. And the actual on the water main was higher. It was I think 200,000. So with that, we do anticipate that we could sell the surplus equipment that we're going to replace for 48,500. So I'm on page 7 right now at the bottom. One is an outside grant. So this is for the furnace replacement on this building. We're currently in the process of applying for a grant to pay for half that. If we don't get that grant funding, we will not proceed with that. So 27,500 of that dollar amount is actually an outside grant. And I say outside grant because it's not MSI, LGFF or CCBF. Natural gas surplus we'd be using, surplus, that's not the right word, reserves. Natural gas reserves is what that should say. We were gonna fund one of the gas projects, 30,000 out of the reserves that we currently have. And then $72,000 charged back for the local improvement tax. For a total of offsetting our expenses of 178,000 that doesn't need to be funded by the town. So of that remaining 722,500 is the actuals on the capital. And as you can see, from 2024, our balance on MSI and LGFF, because of course that changed over to LGFF. We have 705,000 there and $207. We have from the CCBF, we have 404,710, and then our reserves for gas at 595,000 for a total of 1.7 million there. So we would, and then we know that this cold's going to kill me today. We know that our 2025 LGFF amount is $339,231. So we don't have the CCBF account amount yet. So what I'm saying is everything that's in our capital right now would be covered by our 2024 current grants. Those are the provincial grants.
So what are those grants? What are they? They're an unrestricted grant that we can spend them wherever we want, or what? What are they? What's our spending? What is their guidelines for whatever requirements for spending?
For LGFF and CCBF?
Okay, MSI, LGFF, yeah.
I would have to pull up the guidelines because there is, but it's mainly capital.
Okay.
Infrastructure.
Okay.
Equipment.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's good enough.
Yeah.
And this CCBF,
It's the old gas
That's a
tax fund.
federal one. I'd have to look up the guidelines.
These are all capital though.
okay.
Yeah, capital infrastructure projects,
Like
equipment, bridges, yeah.
So is
Yeah.
any of this available to be used for operations?
There is an LGFF operating grant and we got
But that's not the one
300.
included here.
330,000, I think, last year, but that offsets our expenses on the operating. So
That's why I'm asking. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
and that dollar amount might not be accurate. It was around 300.
300 and something.
So at this point, so if you scroll down on page 9, you'll see the 2025 budget. The list is there. You know, the bucket truck we could talk about replacing with and we're leaning towards the man lift idea, the boom lift or man lift. So John's got several quotes on that, and then we'd sell the existing one, replacing with the truck with either a new or used. It depends on. There has been either way. We have the same dollar amount in there. We'll see what our needs are. The skid steer. I had updated this. I don't have the, that's supposed to be used actually. Replace the skids here with, oh, it does say
It is.
used. Oh my goodness. And then the hydrovac excavator trailer, this is the one that John had brought forward at last meeting and brought forward the business case that if we purchase this, we'll actually save over time. And if you scroll down to water, gas, sewer infrastructure for 2025, we've got our standard storm and catch basin repairs or replacements, replacing CCs, gas water meter replacement. Those are annual ones that we do to maintain our infrastructure. And then the water, these last two, the water sewer for lots 37 and Maria Close, and the Maria Close water line replacement for the other lots. A discussion that would be good to have here is, do we want to budget for those? And do we want to use the HAF, the Housing Accelerator Fund grant to fund these? Because Robin did double check that, and we can use those funds because it falls under the affordable housing. So those costs would then also be removed from here, which would be about another, I want to say $55,000 that wouldn't be funded from MSI, it would be out of the grant. And then roads and sidewalks, so our general repairs, we put money in there every year for that. And then the 53rd Ave asphalt repairs, we had decided to push to next year. And then the Iron Horse Trail water main loop and ATCO light retrofits.
Evelyn, you have a question?
I have two questions. The gas and water meter replacement, I mean, just looking at a line here, but that actually has been determined, like, you don't do it all at once, incremental. So this is part of that incremental that we
Yeah.
already.
Every year we're budgeting so that we
Yes.
can replace
So
the
that's
entire,
fine.
all of them, yes.
As for water sewer for lot 37 Maria Close, no, I would like to have that removed from the budget.
So, yes, that's why I have it on there to see what council wants to do, whether you want to keep that.
That's what
I do have a
I'm saying
buyer
now.
for it, but I said I'd have to find out if we're willing to do that. So that's the one where there aren't any services, so it's gonna cost a significant amount to get it done. And then the other side is then you sell it and you can, and then we're gonna be getting the annual property taxes, water, sewer, gas, yeah.
And when you say that you have a buyer for it, the money that it's being offered for, is that gonna? offset all
No,
costs?
we'll never sell it for
Exactly,
that amount.
which is fine.
So, yeah, so it's up to council if you want to keep that in there. Like I said, we could use that grant funding to offset that if you want to keep it in there. If not, we will delete it. And then if we scroll down to the building upgrades, so the furnace replacement, so this is the one for this building, there's two furnaces, they are reaching end of life, so we will need to replace them. I'm hoping to get a grant this year, and if I get a grant, then we'll go ahead. If not, I'll have to start budgeting to get it done regardless. We had talked about doing the drop-in center, replacing the siding and fascia on the one side of the building, and then also the foundation support in the crawl space, and this was based on the 10-year the building study that was done by MP as well, a recommendation. So we can give feedback on this. We can go in closed and talk more specifics if you felt it was necessary. You can proceed with approving the capital budget. You can ask for more information for the next meeting. It's really very open at this time for council and where you would like to go with this.
Evelyn?
So, I mean, the drop-in center, I brought this up a year ago, because I actually had advocated for us to do the drop-in center foundation last year instead of the town building that we did eventually decided on. But I'm surprised to see both items there, because again, I thought we were doing that they were for 2025. I don't remember looking at and seeing the siding and fascia on what was presented to us last year.
Yeah, it was on there for last year. I had it budgeted for last year and we moved it to this year. It doesn't need to be done. So to be clear, that one does not need to be done. One side of the building was done, the other side was not, and that's where they've cleared the trees and whatnot, made a nice little sitting area. The bakery did some work. There was some issues with the drainage on that side. I had that repair last year because I didn't want to cause damage to the building. This is more to make it more uniform and just put money, invest in the building.
Okay,
So it's not a maintenance issue that needs to be done. It's more of a,
Evelyn?
So again, because of the nature of this building, are there grants available to help offset these costs or not?
I've not come across any at this point. I mean, any grants could, it's not one we've looked at funding. This one's a smaller dollar amount too.
So it's a smaller dollar amount that has to be on capital but not included in operating?
We want it in capital because we can use the MSF or
Can you do that?
MSI. All of these are, I talk about the grant for the roof, but all of these would be covered by our LGFF and CCBF
Okay.
grants.
All right.
So none of it's coming out of our pockets, it's all out of the grant funding.
No?
If you're done with that.
Well, I'm not, but go ahead.
I had a question
wanna hear-
about this too. So the Drop-In Center Foundation support in the crawl space, I think really needs to be done. So I'd be in really big favor of that. We've done so much work. The Drop-In Center looks so nice, except for that one side. If it isn't a big ticket item and we have changed some of the capital this year, I would also like to include that if we can keep it. My other comment was about Maria Close 37. I'd like to know, I would like to do it if we can use the housing grant. But I'd also, before I made a decision on that, I'd like to know what other intentions for this grant that money could be used for, or what we had planned, because we did have a plan, and I just, right now, off the top of my head, I can't think if we take that money, that whatever the number was, 55, and we use it, the housing, out of the housing grant, what are we taking away from it? I just, unfortunately, I just right now off the top of my head, I can't think of it, so I would like that just to be brought back before we removed it from the budget, just for a little bit more information.
So one of the projects council's approved already with the HAF grant is the duplexes on those 2 empty lots. Although there are some additional costs that are potential there, where, because it's a tax recovery lot, we may want to officially purchase the land. We will have to, right? So there might be some costs there. Whatever's remaining, because we did the e-permitting. So the other costs are going to be, the final project, which is the, small home community that we haven't decided where or if or how to move forward with. So it come out of that funding. So
Okay.
what we spend there, we'd have that much less to put in, say, roads or lighting or fencing or whatever, if we move forward with that small home community. That's pushed to year 3, I think, or 4 of this grant.
Marianne?
So I like what you're saying and I agree with that and support that. I think we were going to wait and get, we were gonna get Karen just to get her feet wet and then maybe it would be good to have a budget meeting regarding the breakdown of the grant, because it's in $100,000 installments over 4 years, correct?
Well, and we did bring that forward, and council approved the project, right? The action, the HAF
The cost, what I'm
implementation.
saying is the costs associated with it, because I'm not sure, I'm saying what, I'm agreeing with what
Right.
Mel said. I wouldn't want to take something off if we have money and that we're not carrying forward the money and not using it. Or is there a bigger project in mind, like you mentioned about the duplex?
Well, yes, so the duplex is one that so that one was in, but I will bring it back because again, if there's additional costs that we haven't already brought forward, obviously I want to make sure that council's aware of that. So we have to double check, it was something that came forward with the current discussions around tax recovery properties. So I just want to make sure that we have everything, and then what we'll do is we'll bring that to council and say, you know, here's what we're doing with this project, here's the actual costs, and we're gonna do an RFP and get that done. Thank you. And then, but the other one, we don't have a breakdown on that because it's kind of it's out there. We don't know if, like we talked about, West Railway Drive or East Railway for the small home community. East, sorry, I always get those ones mixed up in my head still, and or 911 as well, West Railway Drive. So there's not an actual, I mean, they're very different. If you do 911, we need to bring in infrastructure that's big enough to sustain the full development, not just a small home community, right? It has to be small home community, but plus what else is gonna go in the rest of that, right? So we don't really have costs on that one, and it'll be something that'll kind of be brought back to say, this is what we can do with the remaining funds, and what's there we'll use, and what's not is, again, if we use this for this, and now we get a development permit out of it, it does go towards the grant, and then when we're, you know, the more, we have to get a certain number of development permits, which we should be on track for, to get the funding for year 1, and then year 2, we don't have real concerns over year 1, 2, or probably even 3. And I apologize, I meant to bring Pam in to introduce you all to it at the break.
So in closing, to my comment, I agree with what Mel has said. I would like to see that maybe just on a high level overview on a document, a 1-pager, to say this is the grant and this is where the fund is allotted, so that we know and can make the decisions based on having all the information in front of us.
So bring it back to the next budget meeting for around the capital is what I'm thinking.
Even just, if you could do it by December's meeting, just, that would impact the future decisions, right?
No?
So, and I just wanted to be clear, so yeah, what you were saying was kind of what I was saying. What I just would like to, we can always take things. Like, I just would like to leave it in here, I guess is what, like you were suggesting, removing it out of capital. I guess my suggestion would be, I would like to leave it in capital at this point. It would, and fund it that way possibly, but if not, we can always change our minds after we have that information. So I guess that was just what my ask was to get the support, just to leave it in there till we currently, that's all. If everybody's comfortable with that.
Evelyn?
It goes to show that we need to have another discussion before we do any kind of approving, because I disagree. I think we've invested enough in that area. I think that grant and then what we were talking about with the duplexes. And also another property that we still have to talk about. So again, we're having this conversation, but there's all this other, that we haven't talked about all of these things. So I don't want to agree on anything here until we get past the other side, because that money can also be used for exactly going back to what our delegation was saying, we could actually use it to fix current infrastructure that's not in good shape. Like it, so I want to have that conversation, and we also have a new development officer as well too.
It won't help, it wouldn't work for the new, for replacing infrastructure. It has to be specific to affordable housing. So
Okay.
it wouldn't work for that, but it
So I
works
just
for other
proved
things, but yes.
that I don't
yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Therefore, if I don't understand, we need to have another conversation about it, because we have a counselor at the table that doesn't want to be making any financial decisions, and she's very confused.
Anything else? So, we should have added a budget meeting to our next agenda, actually, because we're probably needing another meeting in December.
No.
I just wanted to say that I'm glad that the loop has been included in it. The budget, I think that one was an important one that we've been. There's a lot on the list for the 10-year plan. Obviously, no municipality can afford to do that much. But I think for priority reasons, I think it's gotta start somewhere, so.
So, and we also have the ACP grant that we did this study, or we're currently doing the study on 46th Street. So what the advantage of that is it creates a shovel-ready project. And there's some grant funding that's currently available for shovel-ready projects. Part of the funding was you had to be over a certain size, and we didn't meet that criteria, but the other one was smaller with older infrastructure. So once we get that study completed, there's potential grants like that. Like, I think the province is seeing some of that need. So we're very aware of the grants and whatnot available, and we try to. But again, a grant, you apply for it. It's also then a matter of whether you get it, right? No, so I mean, the grants are fantastic, but you have to get them. And, when there's only 10 people get a grant of the, 300 municipalities that apply, sometimes it's challenging, but yeah, so we are aware of that as well. But we are definitely, yes, I need to start coming up with a more solid plan on dealing with the aging infrastructure. And if you can't just pave roads, because if you just pave roads, then you pave a road 1 year and then in 3 years it's, but the water line, and that's what this study showed. The water lines, sewer lines, and road in this area need to be done. And that's why they're so large, is because we need to do the water sewer line first and then do the road. We just go in and pave the road, then the issue is we gotta tear it up again because we have to replace the water line right now. So it's having that good plan, and we have that. We have those 2 good studies that were done, sitting through grants. I think that was I'm not sure, but anyways, we have 2, one on building assessments and one on our infrastructure, and they're excellent reports.
And for the lot 37, if that is never done, does it affect a lot of other?
No, it would just be a green space. I mean, we could reach out to the existing owners, and I drove showing Pam around the other day, and it's between 2 trailers, right? So you could put a trailer in there or a small home. That's the interest, I think, is for a small home. Or we could reach out to the existing owners and say, do either of you want to consolidate the lots? But they haven't done it yet, so I doubt they're interested. Or we leave it as a green space.
Because if
It is a significant amount of money to run water lines for 1 lot.
Because
If you're looking at the cost benefit analysis, it would take a lot of years to pay it off.
Yeah, probably about 15 years. But it is grants. Again, council's decisions. So. Is there anything else you'd like? So I'm hearing bring back more information on the HAF to make a decision about lot 37. Is there any other specific, any more information on certain areas or things that I'm missing or things you want deleted? This is the second view of capital.
So were we going to hear from, sorry, Marianne, were we going to hear from John about the Bobcat skid steer?
No, all I need to know is if you want to go ahead with purchasing it, and then we'll take the steps whether to look into whether that's the suitable one or to go elsewhere, but he has reached out to him. I will follow up with them. If I know for sure we want to go ahead with that budget item, that's not going to taken out of here. So if I get that general consensus, we can let them know that, like if you approve the budget today, which obviously is not happening, we could set it up to purchase after January 1st. We can't without a budget approval, but if this council says we're going to keep that in the budget, then we can take those steps and then John will, I know he has talked to them already, but to follow up and have that conversation with them.
My concern is that it is gonna probably go for consignment, and I think today they should demo it and do all the roadways. Kidding.
They're almost all done.
Yeah, John's at the Fed Gas Conference. I think the consensus is that
Yes.
the skid steer
Yes.
needs to be replaced one way or another. So I don't think it will be coming out of the operating budget. We're obviously not approving it, but yeah, at least then they can take the steps they need to start. So if that's a suitable one, then I'll get John to, or Ashley to, probably John to work with them and make arrangements for, January, this is the direction we're going.
So if we can have a motion with that being brought back at a future
Budget meeting,
yeah.
or it could be added, yeah.
I can move that the town of Smoky Lake requests that admin bring back the 2025 capital budget with the following amendments to lot 37, or sorry, an update on the HAF grant. And any, just at the discretion of admin.
So the next budget meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. There's no discussion, all in favor? None opposed? You want a 5-minute break? Please. Okay, just a 5. So we can have a lunch break. But. Yeah. Call a 5-minute recess at 11:02.
Great.
Oh, was it?
Okay.
That was good. Okay, oh, yeah.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning, yeah.
Sorry to wake you up.
Hey, you know what? It was worth it.
Can I let you speak to it?
You look public engagement.
I'll call the meeting back to order at 11:08. And we'll move to 4.3 preliminary draft 2025 operating budget.
I'm gonna hand this off to Crystal to speak.
So the 2025 operating budget is focused on maintaining current service levels unless otherwise changed by council. And includes increases only necessary to do so. The administration requires council's input on some of the items in order to proceed with balancing the operating budget. As you will see on the next.
But may I just pipe in before I also wanted to say, the deficit that you were seeing on the one-page financial statement doesn't take into consideration things like the amortization and whatnot. So our deficit was about 100,000, I believe, just over 100. Keeping in mind that Crystal is very diligent with the budget, so she pared down a lot, and it was a very, very tight budget over the last couple of years to make sure that we were being as fiscally responsible, rather than having that cushioning in there, which then results in when there's little extras on, a piece of equipment costs just a little extra to repair or something, it might put us over a little. If we want to see that
surplus in there, we can make sure there's enough cushioning for those one-offs as well. But she's very accountable with the budget. She looks at the actuals for the last several years, and budgets that way, and again, very frugal. So just so you know, that's kind of why we would have been at that small deficit last year, is we don't leave the extra cushioning in there. We just budget for what we feel that we actually need. Sorry, Crystal, I'll hand it back to you now.
Some call me cheap, but I live for.
I get in trouble when I wanna buy things, so, you know, she's good.
Which could probably also be a downfall to budget tight. But. So in front of you is the draft operating additions by function. So if we want to go down the list, I can explain as we go. Under legislative, the increase to council monthly honorariums, the increase is 3,000, that was already approved. We'll have election costs next year, which is in here. Under administration, the health and wellness policy for employees and council was discussed at the committee of the whole meeting. If it was to be increased by $100 for full-time and $50 part-time / council, there'd be an increase of $1,200.
Yeah, so, and thank you, Crystal. When we were having the committee of the whole meeting, I think when it was brought forward, we didn't have the table in front of us, so council's at a different rate than the employees. And I think we were supposed to get talk about that again, because I don't think we're all aligned on the same page of what's being increased, and I'm not sure, is there a way to provide that information to us?
Yeah, in order to change it, the policy would have to be amended and we can bring the policy back. Definitely.
So the full-time staff get 100 and council and part-time staff, no, sorry, get 300 and council and part-time staff get half that.
Yeah, okay. So there was discussion to increase it $100, but I think 50 for council part-time.
So, if we were, can I debate this now, or is it?
All of these are just the changes that we've identified as potential changes. So even if a motion was made at committee of the whole, we need to ratify it here. This one, the discussion was there seemed to be the support there, the consensus was there to increase it by 100. It still comes to here. So it's, again, this is the time to say, yeah.
Yeah, so my discussion, I would like to, and again, thank you, it's a very respectful discussion. I think I'd like to put it back on the table and to say, I would probably not support having the increase at this time. I would look at maintaining it, but keeping it the same. And I'd just like to have a wider discussion with the rest of them. Evelyn?
I was in that meeting and I was the one that wanted you to bring it back. I supported that and I thank you for the work that you did. But I'm gonna agree with Deputy Mayor Prosecutor Saruski, and I would like that removed from the budget.
Mel, I'll support that as well. Okay, so we'll pull that one up. Thank you.
We have our municipal intern salary and employer contributions. A big portion of that is provided by the ACP grant. NLOS, the Northern Lights Library, is proposing to increase by $77.12. That will need approval when we do come back with it.
It's on this agenda. Sorry. Yeah, it is on the.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Evelyn?
Okay, so just to clarify, for example, awkward to have you on, you said, we can't exactly cut that when we've got an individual rate with someone. Is this when we say, can we ask Chase to leave the room or whatever? So just to, and also
Acknowledgement that is something.
that it's more of an acknowledgement because, you know, like we already, yeah, like this is,
Right?
okay.
And the hiring of the.
And also with Northern Lights, so okay, thank you for those 2 points.
Yeah, if you're gonna get rid of his job, we should ask him to leave the room.
Carrie?
When I look at the NLOS, you have 24 amount, 51.95. and you have an increase or an add 5273, is that a misprint?
Yeah, it should be $77 is the actual increase.
That's right.
Yes.
I have that under the.
I think it was just how you worded it, because some of them have the actual increase in that line and some of them have 24s and 25s with the increase on the end. Yeah,
You
Oh,
switched
okay.
to increase.
Yeah.
sorry.
yeah. Well, sorry.
Where all the other ones were, that was an increase.
So that will impact.
So we're not increasing it by
No,
50.
no.
$77.
Sorry, that would be a big increase for the library.
Oh, I didn't even realize, I knew what you meant. Evelyn?
So the next line after that is cost of living adjustment. But yet we have it later on in, so how do we wanna go about doing it? Cause I've changed my mind about this as well.
So the motion at committee of the whole was to increase it, so that's why this number's in here. This isn't being approved today anyways, and then it's in the agenda later.
Okay, all right, thank you.
No?
No, that was a good question, because I was like, are we supposed to do this now? Or if it's on the agenda later, we'll do it then? Okay, just
That's
asking.
fine, yeah.
That's good.
If I'm kind of jumping ahead, Crystal. So we had talked about that communication app. And then based on some of the activity in the community, like for example, Rural Crime Watch has a following of over 1,200 subscribers. Why would we not consider just joining Rural Crime Watch as opposed to starting something new that wouldn't have the users at this time with that platform? And we can build on something that's already being implemented in the community. And again, just a wider discussion of council. Is there an opportunity to save $2,800 and people that want to subscribe to the service do so on their own?
No.
I-
That's just a crime.
Yeah, I agree, but it was just, we had talked about using it as like doing roads. Okay, we're gonna do snow removal, here's where the snow removal, like, that's just an example, like using it as a type of communication that we can control. Because we don't have a newspaper, things like that. So it wasn't to, yes, crime can be on there, like if there was an alert or an Amber Alert or whatever. But I think the majority of the communication was another tool to communicate with our ratepayers. And so to let the public know what's going on. So at least that's how I saw it. I just think it's in. I think we should all sign up for the Rural Crime Watch one also. But I think that they would do two different things.
And it was to, that we had a lot of questions about not being able to communicate in the town, and a lot of concerns about it, so it was a way to address that. How I understood it. Don?
I'll just say, and I believe all three of you were in that session, but there was a session, actually you might have been there as well, I think from your report, I'm not sure. Where they were talking about when there's an emergency, the amount of people that do jump on board on that app when something's happening. So it might be hard to get the following in the beginning, but if something does happen, it's amazing how quickly people will jump on there and know that that's the resource for emergency alerts. Like I said, I've seen them used. The hard part is getting people to sign up for it. So it is one of those for sure. But yeah.
No?
I just was gonna comment about that session as well, like, because Jasper spoke about communications and ways to communicate and how to be proactive in your community instead of reactive. So I just think that it would be a good start. Yeah, we've all had the wildfire scare, right? So.
Evelyn?
So we do have the amount for the communications app, and that's just for the app itself, just to pay for it.
That's for a year's worth of support, so annually
This is gonna be an
2,800
annual
annually.
edition?
Yeah.
Okay. So because just to play devil's or tag team onto this, there is gonna be more of a cost than just that, because then there's going to be the advertising costs and the promotion costs.
Well, there'll be the operating side, right? So
So
the
that's
staff and
gonna-
support of that would definitely, yeah,
Okay.
there's gonna be a cost to maintain it,
Well,
to
that's
keep it
why
updated, yeah.
this, there's gonna be a flip
Yeah.
on the other, so it's not just $2,500, there's gonna be more money when it comes to promotion and advertising.
Yeah, like updating our social media.
By law enforcement was increased by 5,000.
the hope is that the county has hired, I think. And we did have meetings in advance to talk about, regionally sharing, contracting that position. So, this was to make sure that we got our fair share of that person in terms of our enforcement and, dealing with the unsightlies and the dogs and the complaints and everything else throughout the year, so. We didn't use this year's amount, we did it internally.
Last year there was $5,000 budgeted. This year, if you want to increase, that would be an increase of the 2025 budget up to 5,000 because we already had 5,000.
If you wanted to keep it down a little bit, we could not do the increase or do something in the middle and say, well, we're gonna, because we'll just, it'll be an hourly rate of $100 an hour. And, calls can take, can take several hours with all the steps. But if you want us to use less, then we could reduce that number. That is one that's definitely.
Evelyn?
So in returning to what we're discussing this with the ICC and where we're at with that, so. Like,
With fire.
yeah, not well with fire, but we also talked about this at ICC about the peace officers, so. Is that just on, or until we deal with fire, there's not gonna be any ICC, we continue to have
I think it's when they
ICC?
hire someone and are in a position to be able to contract out.
Okay, so we're just, this is probably.
This is more us contracting a peace officer. I don't, was it discussed that I see? Okay.
Sorry, no, I don't
So
know.
unless we come.
I didn't want to cut in, it was supposed to be an ICC, it was pushed ICC, however, everything on ICC is in waiting because of fire and the priority. So I know you guys are having administrative meetings, and that's why you're probably thinking about it that way, but it originally is supposed to be, it's an
So we'll
ICC.
make sure we follow up with
Yeah.
that. We've got a couple ICC initiatives that
Yeah.
we should have already dealt
Thank you,
with.
because that was.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would like to, I would like to lower this amount though, just because I don't think it's gonna have something that starts on January 1st. So I would like to, lower it a
We
bit.
could keep it at the 5,000 for the first year and then see how it goes.
Might be my feeling on it.
Terry?
So when we are dealing with it in-house and we're using Public Works, for example. Is that time when they're dealing with bylaw enforcement allocated to that? So.
And it's not just
It's
Public
not
Works,
a.
right? It's Public Works and it's me
No,
and it's Tamara and
Yeah,
it's
no, I
like
agree.
it's a lot of hours. Yeah.
So that it's not actually tracked how much was spent on bylaws, so. We're taking away from one, giving from Peter to Paul.
Yes, and the way I look at this $5,000 or $10,000 budget that sits now is strictly for a contractor.
Mhm.
That's why I want to lower the contract amount to half of that, because I don't think that we're going to use the contract amount. The other one is in-house. Obviously, it does take up their time and resources, but for this contracted amount specifically, I can't foresee anything happening with the contractor until after fire is completed, so that's where I was coming from with the 5,000.
The only other thing that I wanted to point out is that when we go into the administration stuff, we don't have a bylaw officer, that's an expense, so if there's more money on that side, we know that some of the time is spent in bylaw. It's not just 100% doing whatever, it's just what I'm trying to point out.
No, yes, I agree, Terry, tracking how much time they spend on bylaw would be beneficial for sure, yeah. But for budget purposes, that's.
No,
what- yeah.
that's right.
Do I have it, is there appetite for that?
I support, that's fine, yeah.
Yeah,
Sounds like
okay,
majority, sounds good.
just keep it at the 5, yeah.
Yeah.
This is fire. Regional fire services, the net increase would be $36,753.
I would cut that out.
Which one?
Fire, original fire.
Yeah, so, sorry, I was looking at how many complaints we had last year. So I had a couple thoughts on this one, but so this is with hiring 2 full-time firefighters. The regional, and this is with our credit of the capital for 3 years. So our increase right now is, if you compare last year's to this year's will be, or next year's will be $36,743. And then that'll go up 2% the next year, I think, and 2% the year after. But then the year after that, year 4, we no longer get that $38,000 credit. So now we're looking at $80,000 more that year, right? So, you know, we talked about wanting.
Year 4.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, one thing that, and I was kind of chatting with, the county CAO and I were talking after a meeting, after our last fire meetings, there was talk about how this was supposed to happen early next year, and they were concerned about maybe that some of the villages might not be ready for it. And I wondered if there was a progressive approach to this as well, if we felt we weren't as well, just putting, you know, playing devil's advocate, I guess, is, you know, what if we said we want to move forward with this regionally, we're still gonna hand it all over, but let's not hire the new firefighters yet. Maybe that's a year out. So just some thoughts on keeping those costs down and having more of a stepped increase, rather, but again, by year 4, those costs are still gonna be up significantly due to the capital payback being gone. So just a thought for those on ICC and for this committee.
Evelyn?
No, actually, Mel was up first.
Oh, no, I need some.
It was I had a slow progression while my thought was working through. So, yes, that's a thought. The other thought, is when you're looking at an $80,000 increase, there may just be time to have a line
Yeah.
like on your tax bill,
Yep.
right? Like,
Well, I don't think we can't do actually for fire, right? But we can separate it out to show that that's the increase due to fire. Your taxes went up this, am I right? Yeah.
I don't think it'd be considered a requisition.
Yeah, yes,
can-
but we
you
can,
You
but we
can,
can say your taxes went up
Yeah.
this much for the normal day-to-day operating increases, but then also went up this much due to,
right,
we're now going regional fire.
Yeah.
I mean, I think especially, you know, the advantage of moving forward now is you have places like Jasper where, you know, it's in the forefront of people's mind is that safety and that having that protection. So, you know, so having that, you know, to say this is for the safety of our residents in our region, there's great value in that too. Now we have a fire chief, a deputy chief, and 2 full-time firefighters, you know?
Evelyn?
Oh, well, not just Jasper, we've had 2
Yeah.
houses in town burn
Yeah.
down in the last few years.
That too.
So.
Yeah.
I stay awake at night recognizing that we've got 2 already, well, on my watch that have burned to the ground. There's also, it actually has come to the ICC that it's 3 full-time firefighters because you need the 3rd, it's 1.5, and those discussions are still ongoing as well. But I think that's, the fact is that we are gonna end up doing that. I don't see any other way around it, that it is going to be an increase to taxes and to attribute it to fire. I don't see any other way.
Terry?
So then, is this gonna be an increase to what we're already spending, or this will be what we will be spending and we don't have the expense of the other stuff?
No, this is the increase. So last year,
go her first.
Marianne?
So I think for this discussion purpose, I'd like to see a 5-year operating budget so that we could recognize that $80,000 in year 3 from now.
Year 4.
Okay, so 25 to 26, it would hit us in 27 or 28. I think if we saw that mapped out for us, that could impact the decisions we make today in terms of.
well,
That my kind of was answering a little bit of that. I just wanted everybody to remember, it is in addition. What was our budget last year on fire?
and that's what I was just.
It's-
That's what we were.
You were already at the 80, guys. Like, it's close. What is in our budget? What's our fire budget?
So our revenues last year for fire, or sorry, budgeted for this year for fire were 22,560.
Like, we're
And then our expenses were. $113,362. So then our net was about 90 some. And now this year it'll be our expenses were, I don't remember the total amounts, whatever that amount, I can pull that for you as well. The expenses plus we also get revenues for
Yeah.
the rent of the fire hall, the rent of the fire storage. And then we get the dollar amount back for the capital, the 38,000, I think it is. The interesting part with the rental is the rental we get, but it's part of the expenses, so we also pay part of it, right? So it's interesting, we're paying our portion into that, and then we're getting a portion back. So that's how it works out to an increase of about 37,000.
But does that rental income come back into operating or does it go into capital? Cause it should be going for,
Operating,
It's been operating, yeah.
it's operating. Electricity, it's your operating.
And I also like to point out that, again, this is an ICC thing, right? So we've made all these decisions, including improving the budget. It's been supported so far at this point. In the end, this overall, so we're asking, the committee has asked for the bylaws and whatnot to come back for, is it December? And then, because the idea was, in the new year, we wanted to move forward with regional fire. It does come back to our councils for final approval. But if we don't approve at that point, right, it goes to mediation. It isn't just that we can walk away at that point. We're too far in. It's an ICC process, so then it's mediation. So we have made these decisions as we've gone, including the capital amount and the operating increases, the volunteer or the full-time firefighters. So we do need to keep that in mind. But I just want to be very clear on the impacts to the budget.
I was, what I would like to, get a little more information then on this is if we, use fire as a pay to play kind of thing. If you took it out of if you took the increase out and you put it on, what would the percentage, what would the increase on somebody's taxes be if we put that to the community? I'd like to see what that number would look like, if you could bring that back to me, so that it's not really, the increase isn't in our operating, the increase is used to pay kind of.
So like a levy or?
Well, you can't call it that, but you could say, here's your taxes, here's your increase to your taxes due to regional fire, and so now your taxes are this. I would like to see what that would look.
Probably about 3%.
It's about 3%, yeah, so I like, but that, I'd like a firm number if we're taking this out of the operating, lowering our operating. To remove the $36,000 increase. I'd also like to see all fire removed out of it, like those two numbers.
So separate fire from the actual, from our budget, basically.
Yeah, just so I can wrap my head around this regional and what it's actually gonna cost and what it would cost to payer specifically. And if I could just get, if I could just see, I don't know if you guys think that there's a value in that, I would like to see what that would look like.
Yes.
Similar to, when I look at my tax notice and I see the requisition for the foundation. So look at the foundation, so you see what the value is, and then you can comparatively divide it over $9 a year or
Yes.
whatever that.
Yeah,
And we could break that down too, right? It's this percent increase, which is this month, much per month, and yeah, for sure.
use my taxes, go ahead and use mine, I don't care if the public knows, put it on mine and then you can show.
You can use mine as
Yeah.
well.
And I just, if that's, I'm sure I'm making a lot of work, but just to wrap our heads around solid numbers, if the rest of council is in favor, I would like to see that.
I think it's, to add to that, I think it's important to have this discussion now, because at some point, this ICC goes to public participation, so we have to be ready to field questions and have that basic understanding, even if it's not our committee, we still have to have that working knowledge, right?
May I jump back a little bit, sorry, and totally change subjects, are you okay with that?
Is it about budget?
It's about budget.
Okay, then.
The skid steer at the lodge is as old as the one we have, so we're not pursuing that one, so there's the answer to that. Okay, sorry. It just took me, the guys are listening, but they're also so
Thank you.
anyways, he answered me, so thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. So do you mind to follow up with Raymond, just so he can proceed?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Unless you want me to.
Yeah, either way, it's up to you, but I don't mind.
I just have a question on that. Just because it's the same year doesn't mean it's used too much. For how many
It
hours?
wasn't just years, it was.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, no, it
Yeah,
was, it had a lot of problems when they bought it, so.
So how many hours are?
I don't have that in front of me,
That's
but yeah.
what we need.
But yeah, and administration will get all that information, you know, when we're looking at purchasing and make sure when we do, if we get approval, we'll find the right one to buy.
Public work, um. We could budget for a demolition, a tax recovery house possibly.
Yeah.
Terry?
Just when we go back to the gravel and dust control, do you know what the cost of our current dust control is without gravel?
Our budget's 10,000.
Street sweeping was a big cost in our road
We
material.
want to look at that too.
No?
I was gonna say,
You're gonna increase the gravel and dust. control. And
I'm in
we're-
favor of increasing the gravel and dust for sure. We need to do that to maintain our alleys.
Oh,
and-
it's in desperate need
Yeah.
of gravel.
However, I do want to have a deeper discussion on street sweeping. And I was
Yeah.
extremely disappointed on the street sweeping this year. It was not well done. It was very poorly done. And I know it was a pile of money and I know he was here a lot and I still am not sure why it looked like that.
Yeah.
My head was, I was unhappy with it.
Yeah.
And so the cost of it for how unhappy yeah. It wasn't very well done.
John and I did go through the budget and it was, or through the actuals of this year and the street sweeping was significant.
Yeah, I'd like that one brought back.
Significantly higher or was it significant
Significantly
part?
high, the hourly rate was. What? And varied, I think maybe varied per employee operating the equipment, I don't know how they rates. But it has increased from the past, previously it was $100 an hour. And we're paying close to $200 an hour for some of the work they do.
Plus the cost of repair, is it
Well, I think
not?
part of that is that we pay that amount and it pays the operator, but there's also some that goes into the a capital budget replacement, because we got, from what I understand is that street sweeper was purchased with a grant. Technically partially is ours, so when they replace it, then there's funding being put aside to replace it.
No?
And that is accurate, and I don't have an issue with the replacement cost of it, and I don't have an issue with sharing with the county. I have an issue with the amount of money that the town is paying an operator, and that if it is like
Quality of the job that
the
was done.
quality, and we do have operators that work for the town. Like we do have, so we just need to talk about it. We need to discuss the cost of this and.
Because one question I had, but it would be an insurance thing too, because we won't let them operate our equipment, because I said they're not insured on our equipment. So if you want to borrow our equipment, you pay us, like we pay you for street sweeper, we operate it, and we'll bring the lift over or whatever. But with that being a shared piece of equipment, we have to insure it. But if we had insurance, then why couldn't we operate it?
When the fire trucks are owned by both, I'm just saying, I just would like to look at that. That I know is not in here. I'd also like to relook at that.
So just curious, is that added to a regular council agenda meeting? Yeah, but, okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, it's not really on the
Because I'm
budget.
going, Does this sound like budget or does this sound like something else?
Yeah.
Because it will carry over to the budget potentially, okay. Thanks,
So you'll
just
have
wanted
make
to,
a motion on
When this is over, I can,
that,
when
right?
we're done, yeah.
Correct.
Terry's correct.
Go ahead.
Underwater. We will be pursuing a new venture for the water reservoir. I believe it was discussed at the Alberta Municipalities Conference from the Alberta government that the interest rates will be decreasing in 2025. So I have not yet applied for the debenture yet. I just want to see what the interest rates will be. A big one. So that
Over 25 years?
I can't remember what you were looking at. our policy says 20 years. 20, so 20 years. Yeah, 25-year debenture would be half interest, half principal. Okay, working on that one, so current interest rates for principal and interest is 87,807. That is a new addition to the budget. Sewer, lagoon cleaning, a lagoon will need to be cleaned. I don't know much information about that. John has the information.
So with this one, we did budget for 20,000 based on the numbers that we were given from previous administration or Public Works. He got a quote and it was 73,000. He's hoping there might be some way we dry it. There's potential he could reduce the cost, but he needs to check with Alberta Environment because things have changed over the years. So we might be able to kind of carry forward that at 20,000 and reduce the net to this year. It's not a true carry forward with that operating mill, right? It's basically putting back into reserves and back out, or into reserves and then back out. And that needs to be done every 5 years. Let's see if they're listening. I'll let you know if I get a message. Yeah, and we did have it evaluated though. We did bring somebody in, and because that was one of the questions. Okay, you say we need to clean it, but have we ever looked at it? And we apparently usually do this cell. And so anyways, we did bring somebody in to tell us where we should be doing, what we should be doing. They said it's due probably by next.
I can speak to that.
Thank you, John.
Sorry, I was just driving, just arrived up here.
Okay,
And
he's arrived. He said he arrived. Okay, go ahead.
So the lagoon cleaning should be done every 5 to 10 years, depending on what the sludge levels are. We've been using an enzyme product that supposedly digests some of that, so we can extend that to the longer end of that scale. But the sludge does naturally build up, especially in the first couple of cells in the lagoon there.
Well, and do you know, John, how long it has been since it was cleaned?
I believe it was, I believe next year will be 8 years.
Yeah, same as before.
Yeah, it's never been cleaned since before.
In 2017.
Okay.
We can't sell it for fertilizer to some farmers.
Well, that's actually what they do. They try to take it to a local farmer to land spread it. It has to be done in the fall if they do that. But I guess in the past, there is a ditch along the side of the lagoon there that they've dried it there. I'm just not sure about the rules regarding that, if that's still an option or not.
We're just gonna double check with Alberta Environment if we can still do that. And then that would reduce the cost, correct, John?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's right.
Any other questions for John?
You've spoken about, sorry to put you on the spot, but you're the one that has spoken about this, about what is it that has not been like certain flushing that has,
Water lines.
is it the water line that needs to be done on a regular basis, but hasn't been done, like, is this tied, this isn't the lagoon,
No.
this is something else, so what?
The lagoon, right? This is the lagoon by the gun range. So when I spoke on behalf of that, it was regular biannual flushing of the water and sewer lines in town.
Which would need an increase to the operating budget in order to do, because we haven't been doing it, or is it just a matter of?
Regular maintenance.
So, okay, that's what thanks for clarifying. Okay.
Yep.
Under development, we have a motion number 499-2024 to look at planting trees along the back alley, I guess, for Beaver Creek Co-op.
So I did reach out to Marianne Jenke. There is a grant there, but the trees are $4 a tree, so it would be very small trees. We could go that route. They'd take quite a few years to get them to that level. There's also a tremendous grant I'm looking at to see about others. So I'm really hoping to, even if we did partially the smaller trees with partially bigger trees, or I can get a different grant. And so I'm hoping to reduce this number. And then hoping also to do the entire length like we talked about, especially if I can get some grants.
Terry?
Do we have any cedar trees anywhere?
In town or that we've planted? I don't think we've done any. I know, Mel had talked to, you have a certain type in your yard. I know I mentioned cedar and the one supplier said we can't grow them here. And I'm like, well, but there's a certain breed that you can. I disagreed with him, and I knew you had some.
Yeah, I have cedars. It doesn't have to be cedars.
No.
It can just be
It's
trees.
something
Cedars
full.
are just full.
And green. We
Yeah.
want something that'll be, stays full all year. If you get a deciduous that sheds its leaves, then you lose a little bit of that, noise barrier at least and light barrier in the winter.
So is there a difference between spruce and cedar for cost?
Spruce is probably a little cheaper, so we'll just see we'll see what we can get and we'll go from there. See what we can get for costs and whatnot. They're probably also a little more, I mean, cedar look nicer. Can look nicer because they're uniform. Probably not quite as durable as maybe a spruce, so it depends on, but then it depends on what disease comes through your town, right? So, or what type of winter you have, so. So yeah, we'll definitely do some research there before we move forward with it, but I do hope to reduce that number. I did, so this is the recreation one is there in Horace Stationery. We do have a motion, number 429-2024. This is subject to the grant. I did email Marianne Jenke to ask if she had applied for it and if she had heard anything, and I didn't hear back yet, so I just sent it on at the end of last week, Thursday or something, so.
I can confirm that Summer Village on our behalf is submitting the grant on behalf of all 10 municipalities. So we have a very good chance of getting it because when it comes back, when we sign all 10 municipalities, we have a very good chance of getting it. But yes, the Economic Development Officer for St. Paul has convinced this Summer Village to apply for an ACP grant on our behalf for Northeast Municipal. So
The tourism Alberta one, the travel Alberta was the one she was applying for.
from what I understand, it's ACP grant.
Okay.
But yes, this is the one that we said, but, and then she's the one that told us to hold off because we're doing something else. So.
Tourism branding, wayfinding plan is $10,000. We've discussed in the past. This was more of a dawn. She leaves.
I have a quick question about, and going back to the recreation and before we move on, and it's kind of related to this morning, the CN station. So we pay the insurance for the town-owned buildings, like the drop-in center and then the CN station, but not the curling rink. They pay their own insurance, right?
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, then, with the upgrades or the renos that were done at the CN station this last year, how much did the insurance go up?
I would have to report back when I get the policy for, which would probably be next year. At the beginning of next year.
I wouldn't, well, okay, so the upgrades were done in 2024.
I don't get the policy till like in 2025. But the
Claims, anything you need to.
The upgrades won't be reflected on them.
I can bring it back if you need.
Sure, I would like, just so that we have some sort of, if we're looking in terms of budget or the work of the subcommittee.
That'll probably be minimal.
Evelyn?
do you want to bring that back as an actual agenda item at a meeting? I will make a motion at the end for that to be added to the agenda, because I think there's more questions about insurance that actually I had when we were over at the CN station, but I didn't ask. So if we could, I'm kind of asking if we could add that as a future agenda item so that we can discuss it. Yeah.
Can we write it down?
So what do you want? I move that administration bring back the current insurance paid by the town of Smoky Lake on town-owned buildings identified as the CN station, the senior drop-in center, this Smoky Lake Museum, and if any, the curling ring building.
But they don't pay
They
though.
don't pay.
They did, that'd be wonderful. Only like 13.
Are there any other town-owned buildings that I may have missed or?
Town-owned buildings.
Just say town.
If you just say town-owned buildings, we'll just bring it back. I think, yeah, if you leave it at that, then we'll let you know if there's none and.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
And while you were gone, or sorry, while you were in the room, just my question was about the insurance for the CN station.
Okay. We were on the wayfinding plan for 10,000. That was.
Should we vote on?
Motion.
All in favor?
And before we move on, because we actually, you're right, we don't even have a motion on the table already discussing this. We didn't do it. So what was the other motion that we were gonna make? That was with you, right?
Yeah, I have it
So why
here.
don't you just go ahead and make that right now?
You guys
She
want, I
did.
can.
Yeah,
Yeah,
she did.
I
So
was just waiting till you, yeah, you did. Okay, I'll make the motion then now at this time to, for administration to bring back, to the next council meeting, the agreement, street sweeping agreement and costs for 2023, 4, what year is it? 24, comparative.
None opposed or carried.
Okay.
The wayfinding, right? Yeah. You could grant.
This one was actually, I'm hoping to get a grant, but this is the dollar amount to get, just for the, no, this was to get a plan.
Oh, right.
Because we decided to hold off on all the signs in town until we had a wayfinding plan, so this is the plan part. But it's a basic one, it's more basic, just, yeah.
Seven.
we passed this one with it was with the Chamber of Commerce, was it not? Some sort of grant for the
No,
wayfinding?
this one was, I don't know if there's a motion. Or just discussion on not proceeding, it was a workshop where council decided they did not want us to just replace signs. They wanted a plan, so we included a budget for that wayfinding plan, and then we'll have to rebudget for all the signs. And then also I applied, so if I get the NRED grant,
That's what I'm thinking.
then
Sorry, that's
that
it,
will
that's
also
it.
have the downtown wayfinding.
That's
in
it, that's it.
yes.
Thank you. The
Yes.
NRED, yeah.
Which could do kind of a good portion of what we need, and then it would reduce these costs.
If we get the NRED, it will reduce this 10,000.
Yes, yeah,
But we're not gonna know about the NRED before we pass the budget.
correct. The grant closes in December. That's the only ones. So for discussion, administration is asking council to, see if they want to budget for a website update. It's a one-time update. We heard council mention this. So $2,500 is the estimate for a one-time update, have someone come in. Can't change what we have, that's just content. So we paid for our website to be set up the way it is. It was just brought up. The other one was volunteer appreciation. I believe you brought up maybe doing gift cards. If you want software for the fast chargers for the EV. And then there's talk about museum CN station. As well as the complex. So these are the 5 items that council at some point in time. But not necessarily as a whole, right? So as individuals, we've heard comments. So just asking, do you want any additions in these areas? Or discuss them, I guess. The agriplex is a big one. Sorry. But I don't think we don't feel like we need anything for the EV chargers. I think now we're at where we're at, we're good. But the other ones, if you want to move forward on any of them, then obviously there's costs involved. And complex, again, she came in, there was discussion about, sorry, Sharon came in, I shouldn't say she, that was, is this something you want to discuss?
So it's under a year 24 amount and it says delegation requested to increase. So again, it's from 45 to 48 is this increase?
No, you pay 48.
So you're saying increase.
We're paying
the
48
overhead is
now.
48.
Yeah, so
Okay.
it was just, there was a motion to bring the Agriplex in to talk about what their needs were. And it was within the request for in-kind work. Yeah, so is this council have any desire to discuss that further based on her delegation?
Terry?
So how many years we've been at this rate? Quite a few, right?
Mhm, Many.
Yeah.
When the last request to increase came in, a motion was made to do work in kind instead. There was also a motion to, weren't they in here somewhere? The motions are in there?
Page 18.
Yeah, because there was a motion to, yeah, all the motions are on page 18 with regarding to work in kind. And then we did things like, I think we paid for power. Did we pay for power at the, no. Campground? Or we,
You did.
oh, we did, okay. So anyways, the motions were there so you could see what our working kind is, because that's been the, historically trying to give them better options, like running the campground and whatnot to make more money. But they have not got a dollar amount increase in, well, many years. I don't think ever.
As I recall, that they came as a delegation, and thank you for all preparing all this, but I think it's still a wider discussion of entering into an agreement and having, I think in lieu of time that we said we'd wrap up at noon. I don't think we can make a decision at this time on that.
So then we'll just keep it at 48,000 for currently in the budget?
I'd like to see a small increase of some sort. Since it's been a while, Mary, Mel?
Is it just me or I can't find when it was 48? When did we start paying? How long have we been paying 48,000? Is it just me or? I know it's before our
Yeah.
time, so, but I'd like that information. I believe it has been.
217.
I
And
think it was
and then when the
they had
count-
that delegation thing.
I did chase all of that down, but I don't know where I wrote it down. That was before this, it was when they were asking for the,
And
oh, I was
that's,
looking for an agreement, I couldn't
Yeah.
find an agreement.
that's why I say that we shouldn't make a decision at this time. We don't have all the information in front of us. And I had sent an email, we said we would be done at noon. So.
Oh, so, yeah,
Just
it's
leaving- just
time
leaving
for
it
lunch
at
break.
that. Just leaving it at that.
But in all fairness, this is the budget, like if we're going to, we're not approving the budget, but we made a motion, I think, to bring this back to the budget meeting, so we should give administration some sort of, yeah, you can't just say it's lunchtime and stop.
Well, we don't have an agreement.
No, I agree. I agree that we need to bring some things back, but I'm just saying, can we just have a quick discussion if we want to go around the table and say, do you want to leave it like this in the budget? Because it is a budget item. Are we leaving it like this, or is there any appetite? And then we do need more information brought back for sure, Mary, and I 100% agree with you, but like, just to see if there's any, or not just the complex, but any of those other things, just so we can have a discussion if there's any appetite to put any of that in the budget.
Because the idea is that we decide what we're doing for in kind, what they're, you know, if they're willing to work with us on rentals, how much we're giving annually, and then we'll create an agreement next year. So we want to know what, so this kind of comes before the agreement that's why we provided all the motions, but we can definitely find one that says, or we can figure out how long we've been paying that amount, for sure. But the motions are there to kind of show what we've been doing in kind. I want to say it was 2016.
That's what Sharon, I thought. Ever?
When you bring it back, could you also, because we're not the only ones, we also have the county, so could you bring that county information too, to say, like, when have they increased, or how much they contribute? Or have they been lockstep with us, that it's been the exact same amount all this time, or did they increase it at some point? But yeah, if you could include county information as well, please.
It's I'm gonna say 214.
Yeah, we did, the last time the county increased, I know the town didn't, we just did.
Okay,
In kind. I just want, that's
Yeah.
definitely information I know, but, yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
get table.
So do we wanna just leave it where it is for now until we get all that information and stuff? And that way we can carry on with our time schedule.
And how would we do that, close, bring it back?
bring it back to the next budget
Budget
meeting,
meeting?
yeah. I'm okay with that, I just wanted a consensus from the room. What, did you give them some idea, and then any of these other ones, any appetite for? The CN station, I'd like to see something happen, but as since we talked about starting a committee, I don't know what a budget item would be, but I'd like to see something put in there. Not necessarily an employee, but some sort of budget to start with something, but not like a wage. I don't want to see a wage in there, but a small amount to have something.
$5,000 or something.
Something started for next year. If we don't use it or whatever, that's fine, but I'd like something allotted. Because we talked about starting a committee, so we just did our tour this morning, so I'd like a little bit in there. The volunteer appreciation, I don't know anything about.
Oh, that, yeah.
Is that like what volunteers, do we have a
Guideline.
guideline of who would get?
It was just I'll leave it maybe with Council Copes. It was kind of just a casual conversation that
Okay,
But like to leave it as it is, because it's coming back anyway, because we can see where we're making cuts and where we're doing in that, so just kind of keep it there as a placeholder, but.
okay. And the website, I'm not really interested in paying $2,500 if they can't change, like, I'm not sure what they're gonna update. What are they gonna update? If we're doing the content, is it really?
we've heard very positive feedback on our website, so I know it continues to need work, and we have a new girl doing new lady doing communications, so that's gonna take a little bit to get her up there. I mean, we have Chase who's got a double major in communications, so we're hoping to get him some training on there.
Yeah, I think
I don't know, we're happy with where the website's at and how it's gonna continue to grow, and we're gonna maintain it, and but if council is, what I've heard is council maybe isn't necessarily thinks there needs to be more done, then if you, like, cause that was a comment, should we contract? So Laura had done some legwork to bring somebody in to look through everything. Our biggest challenge with that is they'll be tying up my staff on the content, because they don't know the content. So then we're just putting that many more hours in. We did contribute quite a few hours, like a lot of hours in the last year, getting it up. And I know it's not perfect and it always needs to evolve. So I mean, it's up to council. If you want it to be a step higher and we want to do more and you want us to hire somebody to work with us for one time every year to get it up to date, it's about $2,500. In the meantime, we're continuing to evolve it and add to it and hear from council when there's feedback on items that we could include or whatever. And looking at other municipalities and continuing to make it better.
Yeah.
So it's your call.
I'm happy with what it is for now. Eventually, maybe there'll maybe some help.
And everything can always improve, right? So we know that. So there's always things we can do. So it's up to you if you want us to spend the money to contract. It was brought up at one point.
I don't know, so I wouldn't be supporting increase in spending money there.
So that leaves just some more information regarding the complex for you guys to bring back and putting in a small budget for the CN station. And that's it.
Okay.
Maybe. All right.
On to revenue. We discussed at the cow meeting, the day before, minimum tax increase from 600 to 800. So that's what the increase would look like. 3,065. The ACO franchise fee was approved at 7%. There will be a decrease in the estimated distribution revenues for next year. Métis Crossing solar revenue, we don't know what that'll look like yet. That's supposed to be 15% of the net revenue to community development.
I'm hoping to also bring forward because we'll see that in the new year, the actual amount that we're gonna get, and I'd like to bring forward a policy, so there's some direction, especially moving forward with new council and whatnot, on where that money gets spent.
That's the community fund?
Yeah. Yes, from the revenues, yeah. That's the regional, yeah.
MCC returns, principal will be 56,502, which will replenish the reserves that we borrowed it from, and interest will be 43,497. That goes to general revenue as per bylaw. An increase in tax revenue from the residential development that we did this year, or had this year. So that'll increase our tax base. So, yeah. For discussion, water levy, capital replacement fee. And spreadsheet, we don't have current capital levy replacement fee for water nor sewer.
How's that again, sorry?
The capital replacement levy for water. We don't have one right now. Or sewer.
So is it the goal to have that passed on to the residents in terms of their utility bill or?
Yeah, per consumption or per utility account. Some municipalities charge per utility account and some charge a fee on the cubic meter water consumption.
But
That
our-
goes into a reserve for future replacement of the water line.
Mel?
Yeah, but we have a $35 service fee.
So that's going into revenue,
And that goes into revenue.
not
So-
into.
Small comment Crystal had is we could take, say,
Yeah.
like St. Paul and say, I think it was St. Paul and say, put $2 of that $35 service fee from each user with an example and put it into a reserves budget rather than into general revenue.
I would like to
Since
see
our,
that.
since our
Yeah.
service rates are a little high.
Yeah, I would like to see that happen. I wouldn't be interested in adding a levy with our service fees
Yeah.
the way they are, but to reallocate our service fee to count for replacement makes more sense to me.
I agree with Mel, but I'd like to see some other examples of what we could set up because I don't feel that we have everything in front of us to make that decision to say.
So Crystal just pulled a few kind of near us as examples.
And sorry, I didn't mean it.
Yeah,
combative or-
Okay, no, not at all. It's just,
Yeah, just-
my challenge is always, you know, and yeah, we could come back with 10 different if you would like, that's not an issue. I remember when I was in the city of Camrose, they actually identified the municipalities we compared to. So then it was consistent because there's 330 some municipalities. I can find you one of every, like everyone does things, so it's all over the map. As you can see by this, it's all over the map. So I mean, we can get you several more. It's still gonna be all over the map. But if that's what council wants, but just keeping in mind, there's not a lot of consistency in a lot of things. Municipal, you know,
Yeah.
so, you know,
Jerry?
our recommendation was, yeah.
The only thing is, when we look at it by month or by meter, it's not giving us the full picture of what the revenue would be. So if we knew that we were selling 2 million meters of water and we put 50 cents on it, we know we would get
Mhm.
half of that amount.
Yeah,
So
so if we-
that's what I
yeah.
think is we need.
So if we had
more
a general
information.
guideline on, let's start with this, of a, say it's $1 or $2 per service fee or whatever, like then we can come back with this is what so if you had an idea of what you want us to bring back, then we can.
So then, if we go,
I'm gonna bail you out.
No.
Let's, I said, let's make it a little easier. I'm gonna bail you out instead of consumption. Cause we do sewer by consumption of water. And we do, you have your service fee and then you have your consumption of water charge. When there is an issue, it gets messy then, right? So somebody's toilet ran and it was cost them $400. You know, now you're tacking onto that as well, like it's. So
Well-
when I look at a service fee, that's a set fee every month for every single person, no matter, you know.
what I was just comparing it to is, we've got the highest service fee monthly, but we have the lowest consumption rate.
Yes.
So it just needs to be brought back and looked at.
We took $2 out of that service fee. Per user, something like that, per account, or something like that.
Yeah, 540.
He's talking about consumption.
Consumption, you want consumption?
Yes.
Okay,
Do both.
okay, we'll come back with a couple scenarios for the next meeting.
Okay, and what are actual revenue, or it'll be revenues to go into reserves?
Well,
And then just to jump ahead, I'm gonna speed us up here. The bulk water, I wouldn't be interested in raising. I think our bulk water is what, $7? $7.50. I'm not really interested in raising the rate on the bulk water.
Good day.
We have a significant amount of people that rely on bulk water.
It's not a big thing.
Yeah, like it's not gonna save us a ton of money, but it is. I get a lot of complaints already about the coffee.
yeah, no,
And the machine,
yeah, I agree.
so that was, that's just where I was with that.
Okay. We
And that's
continue on.
agreement across the room, yeah. We should just double check. We don't want to listen to one person and then have the other four say, hey, we didn't agree with that, but no, it sounds good.
And I just came across another municipality that charged $2 for mailing out a utility bill to
Yeah.
cover the cost of the dam, the paper, dam books. So I don't know if there's an appetite for that. We're really encouraging residents to go paperless and switch to e-billing, especially at a time like this with the everyone straight.
Yeah.
But we still have some there.
Evelyn?
So I do agree with that. I would like to, I believe we should. The only thing that, to me, there's a tipping point because of all the babas who are
Yeah.
not on computers. So I want to be considerate of that. Have we reached a tipping point where that, like, they're in the minority? Because if they make up a greater percentage of that 300, then I'm hesitant to do that. But if we are at the point, or be at the point that if we give them a heads up saying as of this date, and we're telling them a months in advance, suddenly we see the 300 dramatically decrease down because so many people said, oh, you're really serious about this. Now I have to get onto my computer and do it. Like, these are my questions, so I'm looking for guidance that way.
We could have a breakdown of the demographics of who's, yeah.
That would probably help, although I know that now there's a stereotype that not all Babas are, whereas they're all on their phones with the grandchildren photos,
Yeah.
yeah, of course they're the ones, but you know what I'm getting at, like, I'm using that stereotype as a way, like, our senior population or population who are challenged with using the internet.
Mel?
I agree. I agree with that. When at first I was like, yeah, we should do that. And then I was like, no, we shouldn't. So I think maybe what if we did it not in this year's budget? But we did a big push for
Promoting it.
promoting and
Online.
trying to, and I know you guys
The strike is
are-
helping.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, and then maybe it'll be something easier next year. Telus charges me, I like a paper bill. They charge me $2. Service Credit Union charges me $2.
So is there a way to have volunteer people sign up for e-billing and still look after the other ones?
A public engagement session, come out, show up and.
But you know what I mean, like if we have people that wanna be paperless. Is there a way to have them paperless and print the bills for the people that wanna be without charging them?
We're already doing, that's what we're doing
That's what
now.
we do.
Oh, okay, so there is people
Oh,
that
yeah.
are paperless.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I am.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what would the majority of the people be? Like, how many would be affected by this? A third?
Numbers 300.
I'd have to get more.
But you know what I mean, just
Probably around half.
half are already are
Yeah.
paperless. So it's not gonna affect all.
And again, we'll see,
No.
we're doing a promotion, we're doing a contest, sign up for e-billing and you get your name entered for a
Yeah.
town swag and
Perfect.
with the strike, right?
Yeah.
So I think if I like that, if we just promote that, we'll see.
Promote it for the
Claire
year and
has
leave
to
it out of the
say.
budget
Claire
this year.
said not half,
Not half?
but she's still typing.
Just, yeah, I'm finding, just like even what I said about the volunteer, just to leave it there for discussion, because I think we still might come back, because I forgot about it. That's a great idea. Wanted to give kudos to administration for doing that. I saw that on Facebook, so that was a great idea to do.
Oh.
With considering the postage, which is great, because we might actually get an answer to our question. I forgot all about that until you just said it. We already are experiencing Canada Post, right, and whatever have you, so it's like in a way, perfect timing for our budget, because we can see, we can measure it. There is gonna be data available to us, so we might still be able to add this to the budget because of what's going on right now.
She said there's 134 people on e-billing out of 600 bills.
Oh, wow.
So
I did not have.
470
Okay.
No.
470 that receive paper bills.
Oh, no, that's.
So at a cost of how
And-
much?
and it's-
Yeah.
Sorry.
But it's paper, envelope, and dollar stamp, and I mean, we have
Printer.
a stopper thing, right? But still, it's that
Sort of special.
cost that machine, right?
Oh, no.
Our actual costs are probably more than $2 per,
Like, oh, no.
per bill, honestly.
I wanna see it on the budget now that I hear those numbers. I'm sorry, Bob.
We could take that in consideration when we do the master rates update. We could look at including it there. We can bring it forward at that point.
Stamp alone was $1.98 per bill.
Oh,
I didn't know.
so our stamp's costing us $1.98 per bill.
Thank you, Tamara.
It's costing you $1.98 because you put a newsletter, like, just so everybody knows, it's
Yeah.
not just the bill,
Yeah.
it's the
No.
newsletter. And anybody that is going paperless, are they still getting a
Yeah.
newsletter? So just keep that in mind. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, put it in there, I guess. You guys wanna put it in, we can always bring it back for discussion.
So we'll include it for now and then we'll see. Okay. Any other feedback for us to bring back for the budget meeting on operating? So it should be a more broken down budget next time. Then this next one was, motion to accept.
Gary, you wanna make that one, to accept the preliminary budget? 2025, all in favor? Any opposed, so carried.
Got a quick question, how long before you estimate you're gonna have a break?
Yeah, we're actually,
Well, that's up to
no, I'm
us.
sorry, I made plans based on that. On this hour that was off, so. Well, I'm,
So do you guys want to, we have to decide when we're gonna finish it then?
Yeah.
So if we're taking a lunch now until 1, because council meeting's at 1, and that's a set time, then we'd adjourn this to follow the council meeting at 1.
You guys
Yes.
good with that?
It'll be at the end of the evening.
Right. Yeah. and with everyone, or?
I'll make a motion to recess the budget meeting till after our scheduled regular council meeting day.
All in favor? Any opposed, so carried. Just all adjourn after.
Recess.
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 12:17.
Thank you.
I figured we